What's going on, Frag Count? Max Forte to bring you another type of video today. Today we're going to be covering my top favorite notes in fragrances. Now, what I want you to do is in this video, what's going to happen afterwards, periodically I'm going to be releasing videos of top fragrances within that one particular note. I may start with Boozy scents, my top favorite Boozy scents, my top favorite tobacco scents, so forth and so on. But I would like you to please comment down below and let me know if there's any fragrance notes or note that I didn't talk about in this video that you absolutely love, and I may very well consider doing a video on that note, that particular note, my favorite fragrances for that particular note. So without any further ado, enough babbling, let's get into my top favorite notes in fragrances. Alright, so kicking things off with oak moss. A fine example of this note is found in one of my all-time favorite fragrances, the 1978 release, Azaro Pour Homme. So along with that particular example of the fragrance that contains a perfect note of oak moss, I'm going to give you the odor profile. Now, oak moss is a very inky, a very forest-like, green, bitter kind of smell found in most great Chypres and Fougere fragrances, which happens to be two of my favorite genres in fragrance and perfumery. Unfortunately, pure oak moss or heavy oak moss is not really permitted these days because it's restricted due to allergens and very well controlled with, within the fragrance industry. So unfortunately, you have to get some vintage stuff to really get a sense of, a really mossy kind of scent. So like I said, the 1978 Azaro Pour Homme is a fine example of that note. My second favorite note in fragrance or perfumery happens to be Vetiver. A perfect example of that note can be found in a 1961 release from Guerlain titled Vetiver, Guerlain Vetiver from 1961. Now, the odor profile on Vetiver is a very grassy, musty, dry kind of scent that falls under the woodsy category in fragrances. This is a bit bitter, chocolate-like nuance and smoky facets as well. So there you have it, Vetiver number 2. The third note that I absolutely love is Plum. I love Plum in my fragrances. If you follow the channel in My Taste, you know this. And Plum is a note that can be found in a lot of Oriental and some amazing fragrances. But one particularly caught my attention, the 2011 release from Bond Number 9, Andy Warhol. Now, this fragrance has one of the best plum notes I've ever put my nose on, which unfortunately was sadly discontinued and it's getting harder and harder to find. But you can find good plum in a lot of different fragrances. Plum Japanese from Tom Ford Private Blend is another one great example of plum in fragrances. Now, what I love about plum, the odor profile, is that it's very juicy, very succulent. It has this very luscious, luxurious, kind of sweet, fruity nuance that I absolutely love. And if you also share the same interest, you know what I'm talking about. Plum at number 3. The fourth note that I absolutely love happens to be cinnamon. Now, cinnamon is another note that can be found in a lot of gorgeous fragrance offerings throughout the years. But one amazing modern classic that contains a very prominent note of cinnamon happens to be one of my all-time favorites from the house of Frederic Malle. I'm talking about Musc Ravageur. Now, the odor profile here is sweet, sensual, and very warm, and it lingers in absolute goodness. So there you have it, cinnamon at number 4. Number 5 happens to be Cacao or cocoa. One fine example of this note in a fragrance is from the house of Guerlain, Lige, L'Instant de Guerlain Extrême, which happens to have one of the best cacao notes I've ever put my I've ever put my nose on. Now, cacao odor has a profile that's a little bit bitter, sweet, very luxurious, with a heady, creamy undertone, which is just to die for. At number 5, Cacao. Let's go on to the number 6. My number 6 is leather. Now, there has been some amazing, outstanding, phenomenal releases of leather fragrances throughout history. But one of my all-time favorites happens to be from the house of Chanel, Cœur de Russe, or Cœur de Russie. This is an absolutely phenomenal leather fragrance. There's many, many great leather fragrances that I absolutely adore, but this one comes to mind for being such an outstanding, perfect leather fragrance. Now, when it comes to the odor profile of leather, you have the more natural and the more synthetic, the more animalic, the more suede-like, comforting, cozy. There's a multitude of spectrums of what leather notes you can find in different fragrances. I love them all. I think they're great for what they're trying to evoke. But like I said, Cure de Rousse is one that really comes to mind that I absolutely love. But leather is definitely one of my favorites of all time at number 6. At number 7, we have Boozy scents. Now, Boozy scents, alcoholic kind of accords or notes, I love them all, tequila, rum, but two in particular I absolutely love, which is whiskey and cognac. And one fragrance that does this perfectly, embodies both, happens to be Roja Dove's Creation E or Enigma. Now, the odor profile of Boozy scents is one that is very sophisticated, elegant, that evokes a spirit that has been aged in oak barrels. A lot of oriental and woody spicy compositions happen to have this kind of accord or notes in them. This happens to be a very complex note, which can give you a chocolatey kind of vibe, hay, honey. Again, it's really complicated note that gives you many different facets of the spectrum, but for sure it's very warm, it's very sensual, it's very deep, and absolutely love in my fragrances. So Boozy scents at number 7. Number 8 happens to be vanilla. Now, vanilla is a note that is featured in the best gourmand fragrances that the world has to offer. And of course, if I'm talking about gourmands, I have to be talking about the house of Guerlain. And one of the best vanilla examples in the world of perfumery happens to be Spiritueuse de Vanille. If you love vanilla, this one is a must. This is an ever popular note and it has become more and more prominent in fragrances nowadays, especially female fragrances or gourmand orientals. Most of these fragrances feature the vanilla or vanillin, the more synthetic note, in their base or dry down. Fragrances that contain vanilla happen to be very cozy, very warming, and very comforting. So this is why I absolutely love vanilla, especially when the weather is cold. Alongside with amber fragrances, which is also one of the fragrance notes that I love, this happens to be featuring a lot of oriental fragrances. At number 8, vanilla. Number 9 is lavender. Now, lavender happens to be a note found in a lot of great barbershop field type scents, and a perfect example of this is Invasion Barber by MDCI Parfums. Now, the profile of lavender is a note that has two ends of the spectrum. You can get a more aromatic clean, which is found in a lot of the Fougère fragrances, to a more licorice type of lavender that you can find in a lot of different orientals that are found in today's perfumery. So lavender at number 9. At number 10, last but not least, tobacco. Now, tobacco is a note that can be found in most notorious, amazing, modern, classic scents of our times. I'm going to give you two examples, fine examples of tobacco in fragrances. One, 1978 Polo Green. That's a timeless offering of a very bitter-like tobacco. And then you can find a more dried but sweeter, semi-sweet kind of tobacco found in the amazing opulent resinous offering from Parfums de Marly, Herod. So tobacco at number 10. Now, tobacco scents are very warm, rich, very alluring, and a little bit mysterious. They can give you off a facet that's almost caramel or sweet-like to bitter, like I explained to you before with Parfums de Marly, Herod, or Polo Green from Polo. So it gives you a multitude of facets that can go from sweet to bitter to a rosy, fruity, and violet-like aspect as well. So very complex, very intriguing note, tobacco at number 10. So there you have it. These are my favorite top 10 notes and fragrances. Believe me, I wanted to do a top 20, but I didn't want the video to drag and be too long. There's notes like rose, amber, a lot of great notes were laughed out, but I do love them. But I think these are my top 10 favorite notes at this time. So what I want you to do, again, comment down below, let me know if there's any notes that you absolutely love in fragrances that I left out in this video, and I will most likely be doing a top fragrances that I love with that particular note in the upcoming months, as I'm going to be featuring these top 10 favorite notes, fragrances that I love with those notes. I may as well do other ones that you guys love. So thank you so much for watching. This was Max Forte with another video. Stay tuned in the meantime for a lot more content coming your way. Stay fragrant, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.